There's no point in keeping her around. She's just a burden on my neck. I'd kick her out altogether, the husband mocked his wife in front of the guests at her own birthday party while Emily served everyone. But the fun didn't last long. As soon as Emily started her toast, everyone fell off their chairs. Hello. Before we begin, please write in the comments which country you're watching us from. Have you subscribed to the channel and given it a like? We wish you a pleasant listening experience. Emily Louise, or simply Emily as her husband and close friends called her, woke up before the crack of dawn. Outside the window was a damp October darkness, but there was no time to sleep. Today was her birthday. 45 years old, and she had decided to celebrate the occasion. Michael, her husband, reluctantly agreed and even invited his business partners. Might as well talk business while we're at it, he tossed condescendingly yesterday while scrolling through news on his tablet. She reached for her slippers, feeling for them under the bed. Old, worn-out ones. 3 years ago, her son had given her new, beautiful ones with fur trim, but they turned out uncomfortable, and Emily went back to these with the insole worn through to holes. Just like me, she thought, catching her reflection in the vanity mirror. Tired eyes, wrinkles around them that no cream could hide. Hair touched by early grey. 45. A woman in her prime again. Popped into her mind the saying her mom loved to repeat. What prime? Emily carefully slipped out from under the blanket, trying not to wake her husband. Michael loved sleeping until noon, especially on weekends. I've slaved away all week like a dog, I deserve it, he always said with that look, as if she, Emily, did nothing but lie on the couch with a magazine and candies. Though it was she who got up at 6 every morning to make him breakfast, iron his shirt, pack his briefcase, and then still managed to stop by her daughters to help with little Tommy. The grandson, at 4 years old, was a real handful and needed constant attention, while the young parents worked from morning till night. The kitchen was cold. Emily shivered and threw on an old knitted cardigan she kept specially for these early rises. She turned on the stove, put on the kettle, and started pulling out the preparations from the fridge. Yesterday, she had spent half the day at the stove. Baked pies with cabbage, with apples, with cherries from her own preserves, pickled mushrooms that she and her friend Sarah had picked in September in the Chicago suburbs. Michael had just snorted then. Found some fun, like farm girls with baskets. Then you'll poison yourselves with those toadstools. She didn't argue. After 23 years of marriage, she'd learned to let such remarks slide, though each one left a small, almost invisible scar on her heart. These scars accumulated, layered one on top of the other, healed over, but never disappeared. Emily started slicing the smoked ham into thin slices for the party sandwiches. Fragments of thoughts, plans for the day, a to-do list flashed through her head. Don't forget to call Lily, find out what time she and Tommy are coming. Check if there's enough salt in the pickles. Call Mom. She'd been under the weather last week. Ask about her blood pressure. Will Michael even congratulate me? She suddenly thought. Does he even remember it's my birthday? A pang in her chest. 23 years ago, when they first got married, he greeted her first birthday after the wedding with a bouquet of roses, placing them all over the apartment. Now he didn't even give a card. What bourgeois nonsense, Emily, he'd brush off. We're adults. What's with the puppy love? While the kettle boiled, Emily took ground beef out of the freezer into a bowl for patties. Michael loved patties with mashed potatoes and pickles, ever since they met at a student council meeting at the university. Back then, in '89, she was a straight-A student with a long braid down to her waist. And he was the life of the party with a guitar and ambitions. I have big plans, Emmy. We'll conquer the world together, he'd say, hugging her on a bench in Grant Park. She believed him, believed so sincerely that for that belief she gave up graduate school offered by her advisor. Why bother with that academia, Em? Michael convinced her. 3 years slaving for pennies, then a lifetime as a broke teacher. I have big plans. I'll start my own business. We'll live like real people. They didn't conquer the world, but they achieved a certain level of comfort. More precisely, Michael achieved it. That's how he always put it, and the fact that behind that achieved were her sleepless nights drafting business plans, her idea to open a chain of appliance stores in residential neighborhoods instead of downtown, her ability to get along with suppliers and bankers. That all got forgotten, erased, as if it never happened. The phone dinged. A message came. Sarah, happy birthday, girlfriend. May all your dreams come true. Just shh, don't tell Mike. He might get scared. Emily smiled. Only Sarah truly understood her. Only she knew the price Emily paid for this seeming family coziness. Hey, what are you clanging around so early? Came her husband's grumpy voice. Emily flinched and turned around. Michael stood in the kitchen doorway, sleepy in the silk robe she'd given him last New Year's. Grey at the temples and receding hairline made him look like a solid official. Emily remembered how he worried when his hair started thinning. He even took special vitamins, but then accepted it. After all, it's a sign of manhood, one of his business partners told him. Look at Bruce Willis. Women go crazy for him. Sorry, I didn't mean to wake you, she smiled guiltily. Just prepping for tonight. You said important people are coming. Yeah, and that's why I need to sleep in. Not listen to you banging pots, he grumbled, heading to the fridge. Where's my juice? Second shelf, as always, Emily replied, turning to the stove to hide her expression. Michael grabbed the orange juice carton, took a big swig straight from it, a habit Emily had tried unsuccessfully to break for years, and put it back in the fridge. His gaze fell on the cutting board with the sliced ham. This for the guests? He asked, snagging a piece with his fingers. Yeah, for sandwiches, Emily nodded. Don't overdo the food, Michael warned, chewing. It's not a wake where tables groan under the weight. Nowadays buffets are in, light snacks, wine. And you're acting like you're feeding an army platoon again. Emily stayed silent. Yes, she cooked a lot, the old-fashioned way, as her mum taught. Guest in the house, joy in the house, the table should overflow. But it wasn't just tradition. Cooking was always her way to express love, care. Through food, she said what she couldn't with words. Once upon a time, in another life, he would have come up, hugged her from behind, kissed her neck, and said, "Happy birthday, my little homemaker." But those times were long gone. Now he just grabbed another piece of ham and, without a word, went back to the bedroom. Emily stood for a minute, staring out the window at the grey sky, then shook her head and got back to work. Her friend Sarah often told her, "Dump him, Em. Why be his maid? You're smart, beautiful, golden hands. It's never too late to start a new life." But Emily just waved it off. What new life in my 40s? And where would I go? Apartment's his, car's his, money's his. Though that's not entirely true, she suddenly thought, cracking eggs for batter. The apartment was bought when they were already married, so by law she had rights to half. And she mostly used the car, drove the grandson to daycare, shopped for groceries. Michael preferred calling a cab or riding in the company car with a driver that one grateful client arranged for him. And the money? Yes, the main income came from Michael's business, but Emily always helped him, though not officially on payroll. She handled the books, reviewed contracts, prepared tax reports. Nonsense, she said aloud, chasing away unbidden thoughts. No point getting sentimental in old age. So she spun like a squirrel in a wheel. Cooked, washed, ironed, planned menus and shopping, remembered birthdays of all his relatives and business partners, managed household finances. And in recent years, helped her daughter with grandson Tommy. Babysat him while the young ones were at work. By noon, the table was almost ready. Emily surveyed her work with satisfaction. Potato salad, traditional layered herring salad, aspic she'd simmered half the day yesterday, pies, tongue in jelly, mushrooms. Michael loved treating guests lavishly, like in the good old days, though he himself preferred trendy sushi and steaks. The phone dinged again, this time her son Alex. "Mum, happy birthday. Sorry we can't make it today. Sophie's got a fever, don't want to risk it. But we'll celebrate with you next weekend for sure." Okay. Attached was a photo, 2-year-old Sophie with a big toy bear and a sign, "Granny with love." Emily smiled, looking at her granddaughter. Too bad they can't come, but the child's health comes first. All that was left was to shower, freshen up, and put on that dress she'd bought a month ago at a thrift store on Michigan Avenue. Navy blue with small silver sequins, inexpensive but elegant. She'd saved for the new outfit since spring from the household money Michael allotted. He'd laugh if he knew about her. Stash, but she'd long learned to keep little secrets. She took the dress from the closet, shook it out, smoothing the folds. Last time she showed it to Michael, he just smirked. At our age, dress more modestly, Em. Like it's your last hurrah. She wanted to retort, and when do we ever go out, Mike? When was the last time you took me to a restaurant just us, not with business partners? When did you give me flowers not on Mother's Day? But as usual, she stayed silent. Maybe he's right, Emily thought, looking at her reflection in the mirror. Maybe this dress is too youthful for me. But she had no other festive outfit, and the saved money wouldn't cover a new one. No time to alter an old one either, though she was handy with a needle. In the closet hung the suit she'd worn to her daughter's graduation, but it was totally out of style and too tight. In recent years, Emily had put on a bit of weight. Whatever happens, she decided, and started getting dressed. When Emily, refreshed and lightly made up, entered the living room, Michael was already there in a new suit, with a glass of whiskey in hand. He gave her a critical once-over. "You're meeting guests in that old rag." He grimaced. "Don't you have anything nicer?" "This is new, Mike," she replied quietly, feeling herself blush. "I bought it specially for—" "Whatever, doesn't matter," he interrupted. "Main thing, don't forget Michael's with his wife among the guests. He could become my main investor now, so try to make a good impression and don't blab extra. You know how you can spout off sometimes." Emily nodded silently, though inside everything clenched in hurt. In all their years together, she'd never embarrassed him. On the contrary, she'd often bailed him out in talks with partners when they brought up culture or politics. Topics where Michael floundered like a chip in a stormy sea. "Do you even remember it's my birthday today?" she suddenly asked, unable to hold back. Michael froze for a moment, then smiled strainedly. "Of course I remember. You think I'd agree to this hassle otherwise?" He waved vaguely toward the set table. "I even have a gift for you. I'll present it later in front of everyone." Emily smiled weakly. So he remembers, and even prepared a gift. Maybe she's overthinking it. Maybe he does value her, just doesn't know how to show it. She went to the table, straightened the napkins, checked if all the utensils were in place. In an hour, the first guests would arrive, and she wanted everything perfect. After all, she was turning 45 today. Not that old by today's standards. Maybe this really would be a new beginning. The doorbell rang exactly at 6 in the evening. Emily jumped. She was just setting the utensils, mentally checking if she'd forgotten anything. At the last minute, she decided to add candles. Inexpensive wax ones, but they created a cozy atmosphere. Michael, sitting in an armchair with his tablet, raised his eyebrows. "What's this for? Planning a romantic dinner?" "Just for the mood," Emily replied. "Everyone does it now." "Everyone? Who?" He smirked. "Your retiree girlfriends." She didn't respond, hurrying to the hallway. First came Michael's parents, Patricia and Robert Stevens. The mother-in-law, as always, scanned the hallway critically, scrutinized Emily's hairstyle, and only then air-kissed near her cheek. "Well, Emily, getting older bit by bit," she said instead of congratulations, taking off her mink coat. "In our time, at 45, a woman was already a grandma, but you're still like a girl. Dresses, heels. Oh, what's this weird brooch? Bought it at Walmart or something?" Emily involuntarily touched the small silver brooch shaped like a maple leaf. A gift from grandson Tommy, who made it in craft class. "It's from Tommy," she replied proudly. "He made it himself." "Ah, well, that's different," Patricia nodded condescendingly. "Kids are sacred. By the way, where's my Mikey?" "In the living room," Emily pointed to the door. "Lead your guests in, birthday girl." Michael's father, unlike his wife, was kind-hearted. He hugged Emily tightly and handed her a box wrapped in bright paper. "Happy birthday, daughter. This is from me and Pat." "Thank you, Robert," Emily smiled touched, accepting the gift. She'd always felt her father-in-law treated her warmer than her mother-in-law. Long ago he'd told her, "Pat's just jealous. Michael's our only son." She pinned all her hopes on him. Imagine, thought he'd marry some star, actress or singer. And here you are, simple but smart girl. "I knew right away you're reliable. Pat, well, she'll come around eventually." But the mother-in-law never did. 23 years she treated Emily as a temporary fixture in her son's life, though she adored the grandkids unconditionally and for their sake could even exchange a few non-critical words with her daughter-in-law. "And today I didn't even get a congratulations," Emily thought bitterly, escorting Michael's parents to the living room. Oh well, used to it. She'd long resigned that to Patricia, she'd always be an outsider. In the room, Michael was already telling his parents about his latest achievements. He spoke loudly, waving his arms, as always when wanting to impress. Imagine, this contract's almost in the bag. If it works out, by spring we can afford a beach house in Florida. Right now, everything's cheap there because of the crisis. And what's the contract, son? His father asked. Yeah, with this new retail chain. Michael made a vague gesture. Didn't I tell you? They want to open 20 stores in the Chicago suburbs, and we'll be their exclusive appliance supplier. Patricia gasped admiringly. See, I always said you have a commercial talent, just like your grandpa. He knew how to swing deals, too. Even in the old days, managed to bring jeans from abroad. Yeah, Mom, Michael nodded smugly. This project's a goldmine. Cheap tech from China, but we'll slap on a good markup. Emily froze with a tray in hand. She'd only learned about this contract yesterday, overhearing Michael's phone call and promising exclusivity was a risky gamble. They simply didn't have the capacity for that volume. Mike, maybe don't be so sure, she began, but her husband cut her off. Emily, stay out of men's talk. Better check if everything's ready for guests. Patricia nodded approvingly, and Robert frowned but said nothing. Emily pressed her lips and turned away so no one saw her blush from hurt and humiliation. Men's talk. And who spent all last week on documents for this deal? Who calculated risks, budgeted, verified product specs? But Michael, of course, didn't recall that. To him, all her work was taken for granted, not worth noticing. The doorbell rang again. Guests started arriving. Emily hurried to the hallway. Guests arrived one after another. Michael's business colleagues came with their wives, polished women with identical haircuts and designer bags. They greeted Emily condescendingly, then huddled in a group discussing latest purchases, trips to Florida, and those awful teachers at the private schools where their kids went. Imagine, my Chloe comes home and says, Mum, the math teacher said if we don't learn the times tables, we'll end up like cashiers at the supermarket. One woman indignantly recounted, the wife of the company's chief lawyer. I called the principal right away. That's insulting. My sister, by the way, worked as a store manager while finishing college. The other women nodded in agreement, chiming in and interrupting with stories of how their precious kids were mistreated by heartless teachers. Emily half listened, continuing to serve. She'd never felt at home in this crowd. The wives of Michael's business partners treated her like staff, not the hostess. They condescendingly praised her cooking talents. Ah, Emily, you're such a whiz. All homemade. Wish I could do that. But you know, no time. Spa, fitness, shopping. But they never invited her into their circle, to their girls' nights or get-togethers. The only ray of light in this fake glamour was Sarah. And now the doorbell rang, and there she was on the threshold, Emily's best friend, the only person she'd invited herself. Sarah worked as a doctor at the local clinic, raised her son alone, and viewed the women from Michael's circle with barely hidden irony. Happy birthday, girlfriend. Sarah hugged Emily tightly and shoved a bag into her hands. Here, from me, and don't dare open it in front of everyone. It's intimate. She winked, and Emily couldn't help smiling. Knowing Sarah, it could be anything, from ginseng tincture for boosting libido after 40 to lace lingerie from an adult store. Her friend thought Emily was too buried in domesticity and needed to remember she's still a woman, not just a wife, mother and grandma. How you don't wither among these flowers and berries, I don't get, Sarah whispered to Emily, helping set plates. They only talk about coats even in July heat. Don't exaggerate, Emily smiled. They just live a different life. Yeah, their life's a party, Sarah smirked, and you're slaving for everyone like a maid. Did Mike at least remember it's your birthday? Said he does, Emily replied quietly. Even prepared a gift. Hope not a new frying pan. Sarah pursed her lips skeptically. Last year he gave you a food processor. Like you have no other interests. Emily shrugged vaguely. Michael's gifts were always household-related. He believed in giving useful things, not nonsense. But deep down, she sometimes wanted something useless but beautiful, perfume, jewelry, concert tickets. Though concert tickets were a dream. Michael hated crowds, and the last time they went was 10 years ago, when their daughter performed at a school festival. Whatever, we'll see soon, Sarah said cheerfully. Come on, introduce me to your social butterflies. Want to hear what's trending with businessmen's wives? They returned to the living room, where about 15 people had gathered. Michael sat at the center like a king among courtiers, telling something with active gestures. Judging by bursts of laughter, it was some tale about competitors. Michael's favorite topic at business meetings. So I tell him, "Buddy, where'd you learn to make business plans?" "At culinary school?" Michael laughed loudly at his own joke, and guests joined in, though some clearly out of politeness. Emily noticed Sarah roll her eyes and lightly nudged her friend with her elbow, as if saying, "Don't start." Sarah could be bluntly honest, and had tried more than once to put Michael in his place when he started his condescending monologues. But today wasn't the day for conflicts. The doorbell rang again, and on the threshold stood a tall man with neat grey at the temples. David Peterson, that potential investor Michael mentioned. They'd known each other since university days, but then their paths diverged. David went to work on contract in Germany and returned only a few years ago as a wealthy man. "Emily," he smiled warmly, handing her a bouquet of white chrysanthemums and blue irises. "Happy birthday. You haven't changed a bit since we last saw each other." "Thanks, Dave," Emily blushed, taking the flowers. "Come in, Mike's been waiting." "I'm alone today," David said, taking off his coat. "Veronica stayed in Munich. She has some scientific symposium there." Emily nodded. She vaguely remembered David's wife, a quiet woman with intelligent eyes, a PhD in physics and math. "Too bad she couldn't come," Emily said sincerely, though she knew Michael would be glad. He always felt oddly awkward around educated women, especially those with degrees, as if their mere existence reminded him the world didn't revolve around him and his money. "Nothing. You'll have a chance to get to know each other better." David smiled as if knowing a secret. "I have plans for the near future, and they're tied to Chicago. So I think we'll see each other more often." They went to the living room, where Michael greeted David like an old friend, with open arms and loud exclamations, seated him in the place of honor, poured cognac, started asking about business. Emily didn't eavesdrop on their talk. She needed to ensure guests' plates and glasses were always full. "Sit down for a minute," Sarah pulled her by the hand. "They've all stuffed themselves anyway. Rest. After all, you're the birthday girl." Emily hesitantly sat on the edge of a chair next to her friend. Indeed, guests were full. Many had even unbuttoned top buttons and leaned back in chairs, sated and content. "Let me help bring the tea." Sarah approached with an empty salad bowl. "What else from the kitchen?" "There's aspic left and pies." Emily smiled gratefully at her friend. "And get the champagne from the fridge. Toasts soon." Sarah went to the kitchen and Emily scanned the living room. 20 people fit at the large table made from several. Guests were flushed, conversations louder, laughter freer. Michael sat at the head, telling David something, who listened with polite interest, occasionally glancing at Emily. Probably looking for the hostess, she thought, catching those glances and smiling back embarrassed. David was always attentive, even in university. She remembered how he, alone among the guys, noticed her new hairstyle before a big exam and said, "It suits you so well, Em. Now your brain's cleared for knowledge to fit." And she aced it, though she'd been terrified. "Here's the champagne." Sarah brought in a tray with bottles. "Who's opening?" "Let me," Robert volunteered. "I have a light hand." He deftly uncorked the bottle, and guests applauded as the cork popped to the ceiling. "Well, my friends?" Michael stood with a glass in hand. "Let's drink to the birthday girl, to my wife Emily, who today became a year, wiser." He chuckled, and some guests echoed his laugh. Emily felt awkward. She sat at the table's edge next to Sarah and felt not like the party hostess, but like staff who'd sat briefly to rest. At that moment, she caught David's gaze. Attentive, understanding, with some hidden sadness, as if he saw right through her with all her hidden thoughts and unspoken hurt. Patricia nodded approvingly, agreeing with every word of her son. The other guests awkwardly averted eyes, unsure how to react to this monologue. Someone desperately pretended. To be engrossed in dessert, someone studied the tablecloth patterns. No one wanted to interfere in the family scene unfolding before them. Sarah sat with jaws clenched tight, and Emily saw the effort it took her friend to stay silent. She was grateful for that restraint. Right now, she didn't need a scandal with her friend too. David looked at Michael with open disappointment. He shook his head. Strange to hear this from the guy I knew in college. Remember how you said the main thing in life isn't money, but love? How you dreamed of changing the world, making it better? Michael snorted mockingly. We were all young romantics. Then life taught us that romance is romance, but you want to eat every day and not on a student stipend. You can eat every day without losing humanity, David noted quietly. Emily silently portioned the duck onto plates and sat back down. Her cheeks burned with shame. Her husband treated her like a servant and did it in front of everyone. Sarah squeezed her hand under the table, wordlessly offering support. Delicious duck, Emily, David praised, tasting a piece. You have a chef's talent. This dish wouldn't shame a Michelin restaurant. What's a Michelin restaurant? Patricia asked, interested. Where is that? It's not a name, David explained patiently. It's a quality mark in the culinary world. Michelin stars are the most prestigious award for chefs in Europe. Restaurants work years for even one star. Oh, come on, Michael waved. Simple duck with apples. Nothing special. Emily always makes it for holidays. Exactly, David nodded. And I'm sure it's perfect every time. That's a rare gift. Consistent high quality. Emily smiled, embarrassed. She wasn't used to compliments from guests. Usually, Michael steered conversations to his achievements, plans, victories, even on her birthday. And how long have you known each other? One of the business partner's wives asked, looking at David with interest. Since college, he replied. Emily, Michael, and I were in the same group. But then I left on contract to Germany and only recently returned. And how's it after Europe in our backwater? Michael smirked. Bet everything seems backward, primitive. Emily winced at her husband's crude joke, but David replied calmly, Not at all. A lot's changed for the better here, and people are the same. Smart, talented, capable of much. Just conditions vary. Yeah, conditions here are something, Michael snorted. I slave like a dog to support the family, keep the business afloat. Not like some with European salaries and conditions. Irritation rang in his voice. Emily tensed. She knew those tones. Michael was getting angry, and when angry, he became even more sarcastic and rude. Well, tell us, David, how's it in Germany? Michael continued, ignoring his wife's state. They say after all those refugees, living's impossible. And taxes, bet they choke business. Well, tell us, David, how's it in Germany? Michael continued, ignoring his wife's state. They say after all those refugees, living's impossible. And taxes, bet they choke business. David carefully dabbed his lips with a napkin before answering. His movements were unhurried, confident. Emily caught herself thinking he embodied another world. A world where people don't need to constantly prove superiority, where subtlety and depth are valued, not loud statements. Actually, Michael, it's quite stable there, David began. Yes, there are issues with migrant integration, but Germans approach it systematically, with their characteristic method, and have developed effective mechanisms. He sipped wine and continued, As for taxes, yes, they're high, that's true. But social protection is top-notch. Get sick, they treat you, and not just anyhow, but in good hospitals with modern equipment. Lose your job, you get benefits enough for a decent life, not survival. Retire, you can travel without worrying how to make it to month's end. Emily listened, mesmerized. Such a world seemed almost fairy tale. She remembered how her mother always counted pennies, feared getting sick because meds cost a fortune. Remembered. And in my opinion, that's great. Unexpectedly for herself, Emily joined the conversation. I have a friend in St. Louis who lives there. They've got a whole movement, 50 active ones, organize hikes, workshops, computer courses for retirees, all volunteer. For a second, silence fell over the table. Michael looked at his wife with such surprise, as if furniture had spoken. Well, look at you, expert in community life, he drawled mockingly. And I thought you only specialized in soups and pies. A few guests laughed awkwardly. Actually, your wife was always well-read, David suddenly said, looking Michael straight in the eye. Remember. How she bailed everyone out before exams in college. Her notes were the best in the class. Yeah, that was the case, Michael hastily agreed, clearly displeased David defended Emily. But that was when. Times are different now, different worries. And have you thought about going back to work, Emily? David turned to her. With your economics degree and analytical mind. What work, Dave? Michael interrupted, laughing loudly. You kidding? She's got her hands full. Home. Our grandson, Tommy, cooking. And who needs her now, at her age? They hire young ones with 3 languages and 5 diplomas. Those words had so much condescension that tears welled in Emily's eyes, but she held back. Not in front of everyone, she ordered herself, and aloud said, I help Mike with the books sometimes. And lead supplier talks when needed. Her voice had a timid note of pride. It was true, she often helped her husband with business matters, and though he never acknowledged her contribution publicly, she knew some deals wouldn't have happened without her. Oh, come on, claiming credit, Michael brushed off. What talks? Called a couple times, clarified timelines, that's it. Like she's a businesswoman. Emily lowered her head, hiding her expression. Bitterness hit suddenly, like a sea wave. She'd supported him so many years, helped build the business, been accountant, secretary, office manager. All for free, out of love and loyalty, and he didn't even deem it necessary to recognize it. Sarah sighed indignantly, but stayed silent. Emily knew her friend was barely holding back from telling Michael what she thought. But she appreciated the silence. A scandal on her birthday was the last thing she wanted. David looked at Michael with a strange expression, mix of pity and bewilderment. He clearly didn't understand how you could treat a woman who dedicated her life to you like that. One guest, a burly man in his 60s, cleared his throat and tried to diffuse. I heard Europe's having a gas crisis now. Not cold there, David. Well, a real American isn't afraid of cold, David smiled diplomatically. Seriously though, yes, there are challenges. But Germans approach rationally, switching to alternative energy, developing solar and wind. The conversation shifted, and Emily headed to the kitchen again. Needed to make tea and coffee, get the cake. Sarah went with her. You okay? Holding up, she asked once alone. Fine. Emily shrugged. Used to it. You shouldn't get used to that, Sarah shook her head. He humiliates you in front of everyone. And this David seems the only sane person at the table. How he looks at you. Remember, he courted you in college, before Michael. Oh, what are you dredging up? Emily waved off, taking the cake from the oven, a 3-layer honey cake she'd baked till late last night. Ages ago, and he didn't court, just friends. Yeah, right, Sarah smirked. Who passed you notes in lectures? Who brought lilacs to the dorm? I remember everything. Shh, Emily hushed her. Don't let Mike hear. He's already in a mood today. Sarah wanted to reply but held back. She knew arguing with Emily was pointless. She always defended her husband, even when wrong. Even now, when he publicly humiliated her before friends and colleagues. Well, go to your darling, Sarah sighed. He's probably yelling where his wife's vanished. Emily smiled weakly. Sarah always said what she thought, and for that Emily loved her. She was like a breath of fresh air in the stifling atmosphere of fakeness and pretense surrounding Emily lately. They returned to the living room with tea, coffee, and cake. Guests gasped in delight, seeing the honey cake decorated with candied fruits and chocolate patterns. Who made such beauty? One woman admired. Ordered from a bakery? No, Emily baked it, Robert said proudly. Our girl's got golden hands. Oh, come on, Dad, really? Michael grimaced. Baking a cake. Not launching rockets. Some achievement. The smile slowly faded from Emily's face. She silently started cutting the cake, trying not to let her hands shake. Seemed like a trifle. Husband didn't appreciate her baking talent, but it was the drop that overflowed the cup. She suddenly realized nothing about her pleased Michael, nothing evoked his approval or admiration. Even in small things, he found ways to belittle her, put her in place. I see you like downplaying others' talents, David suddenly said, looking at Michael, especially your own wife's. Awkward silence hung in the room. Michael clearly didn't expect such a jab from an old friend, especially publicly. He turned red but quickly composed himself and smiled strainedly. Come on, Dave. Just affectionately. We've been together 23 years. I know her inside out. She's a simple woman, no frills. Why fill her head with compliments? She'd just get spoiled. He said it condescendingly, with a smile, but steel rang in his voice. It wasn't just a joke. It was a warning to David not to meddle in his family affairs. I see you don't spoil her at all, David noted. And why? Michael was already tipsy and not watching his tongue. What do you need from a woman? House clean, food tasty, bed fun. The rest is nonsense. All that sighing, flowers petals, from idleness. Emily froze with the cake knife in hand. It felt like she physically sensed each of her husband's words stabbing her heart. Did he really see her as a function, not a person? Heavy silence hung in the room. Even guests who usually agreed with Michael now avoided looking at him. Everyone felt awkward about such revelations, especially before the wife. And on her birthday too. Sarah had opened her mouth to say something, but David beat her. You know, Michael, I think you're lucky with your wife. Many men can only dream of one like her. He spoke calmly, but his eyes held a challenge, as if offering Michael a chance to see another side, to fix things. Lucky me? Michael threw back his head, laughing. It's her who's lucky with me. Who was she? Ordinary girl from an ordinary family. Mum a teacher, dad an engineer at a factory. I brought her up in the world, dressed her, shod her, bought an apartment, a car. Before me, she never went beyond the Chicago suburbs, and with me she's seen Florida and California. It's debatable who got lucky. She'd still be sitting with her notes. She'd still be sitting with her notes. Patricia nodded approvingly, agreeing with every word of her son. The other guests awkwardly averted eyes, unsure how to react to this monologue. Someone desperately pretended to be engrossed in dessert. Someone studied the tablecloth patterns. No one wanted to interfere in the family scene unfolding before them. Sarah sat with jaws clenched tight, and Emily saw the effort it took her friend to stay silent. She was grateful for that restraint. Right now, she didn't need a scandal with her friend too. David looked at Michael with open disappointment. He shook his head. Strange to hear this from the guy I knew in college. Remember how you said the main thing in life isn't money, but love? How you dreamed of changing the world, making it better? Michael snorted mockingly. We were all young romantics. Then life taught us that romance is romance, but you want to eat every day, and not on a student stipend. You can eat every day without losing humanity, David noted quietly. Oh, spare me the lectures, Michael grimaced. You've gone soft in your Europe, detached from reality. It's no picnic here, you know. Here it's eat or be eaten. I chose the first. He took a big swig of whiskey and continued enthusiastically. And anyway, at least I'm honest. I don't pretend to be a saint. Many guys cheat, drink on the sly, but feed their wives lines about love till death. I've always been straight with Emily. Never promised the moon. That's true, Emily suddenly said, and everyone turned to her surprised. Michael never promised me the moon. I just thought love was more important than money and status. Thought the main thing was being together in good and bad, supporting each other. Her voice sounded unusually firm. Complete silence fell in the room. Even Michael seemed stunned that his wife spoke not ingratiatingly, not justifying, but with some new, unfamiliar dignity. Cut the soap opera sap, he laughed nervously, trying to regain control. We're adults. Marriage is partnership, a contract, if you will. I provide the material base, you run the home, simple and clear. Emily didn't reply. She silently continued portioning the cake, but her movements had something new, tension, resolve, as if preparing for a leap. And what if this isn't the partnership Emily needs? David asked carefully. What if she wants more? Respect, recognition of her merits, chance to realize herself beyond homemaker. Oh, and how do you know what she needs? Michael brushed off. Emily knows her place is at home. With her education and experience, nothing for her in the job market. Who needs her at her age? I need her, David said firmly, unexpectedly. I'm looking for a partner to expand business in the US. I need someone who knows the local market, handles documents, leads negotiations. And I see Emily has all the qualities. Michael stared open-mouthed, then shifted gaze to his wife, frozen with cake in hands, and back to David. You? You're offering my wife a job? Genuine astonishment in his voice. Yes, I'm offering Emily business collaboration. David nodded. Of course, if she's interested, it's a serious offer with good financial prospects. Absolute silence hung over the table. All eyes on Emily, who seemed unsure where to put herself from such attention. I don't even know what to say, she murmured. Say it's nonsense, Michael said with a nervous chuckle. You're not seriously thinking about some job? You've got plenty to do. Maybe I will think about it, Emily replied unexpectedly for herself. And at that moment, something changed, like an invisible switch flipped. She suddenly realized for the first time in years she'd allowed herself to contradict her husband, not timidly, not apologizing, but directly and openly. And it felt liberating. Think? Michael no longer hid irritation. About what? You want to run around offices in your old age, report to bosses. I'm 45, not 85, Emily replied calmly, and I'm tired of being a shadow. I want to achieve something too, be more than just Michael's wife. Oh, don't start this feminist crap, Michael grimaced. Listen to your Sarah, now spouting nonsense. Emily opened her mouth to reply, but then Robert interjected. Mike, don't talk to your wife like that, especially in front of guests. It's disrespectful. You too, Dad? Michael threw up his hands. What's with everyone today? Conspiracy. No conspiracy, his father replied. Some things have no excuse, and disrespect to the woman who's been with you 23 years is one. Michael scanned everyone bewildered, as if not understanding why all turned against him. What did I say? He exclaimed. Just my opinion. And anyway, this is family business. No need for outsiders to butt in. If you air family business publicly, be ready for public opinion, Sarah noted reasonably, unable to stay silent longer. Michael shot her a scorching glare. And you shut up. It's you who's turned Emily against me all these years. Dump him. Start a new life. You think I don't know what you pour in her ears? I pour nothing, Sarah parried calmly. But you're doing everything yourself now to make her think about divorce. What divorce? What are you on? Michael flared. Tomorrow she'll wake up. It'll be forgotten. We'll live as we did. No, Mike, Emily said quietly but firmly. We won't anymore. Something in her voice made everyone fall silent. Maybe the unusual confidence or resolve that wasn't there before. And anyway, Michael continued, ignoring her words, I could kick her out any time. There's no point in keeping her around. She's just a burden on my neck. I'd kick her out altogether, but I'm no monster. Pity her. Where would she go? Who needs her? He spoke louder, waving arms, spilling whiskey from his glass. Guests looked at him with a mix of horror and pity. Even his mother, always backing her son, now averted eyes, clearly embarrassed by his behavior. And suddenly, in this tense silence, came the crash of breaking glass. Emily had dropped the cake plate. Shards scattered on the floor, and the honey cake splattered in the middle of the living room like a silly yellow blob. Oh, how clumsy! Patricia flapped her hands. Emily, you're getting so awkward. Ruined such a cake. Emily didn't respond. She stood staring at the broken plate, feeling something break inside. The last thread tying her to this life, this home, this man who'd been her husband 23 years. Plate shards on the floor, that's what was left of their marriage. Pretty outside, but empty and cold inside. Now she saw it with piercing clarity, as if a veil lifted from her eyes. Hey, why'd you freeze? Michael got up from his seat. Get a broom, dustpan, clean up. Embarrassing in front of people. He swayed. The whiskey clearly hit, and he grabbed the chair back. His face showed irritation, but deep in his eyes Emily noticed something else. Fear, confusion, not understanding why the familiar world was going awry. But Emily didn't move. 23 years, a whole life, years raising kids, keeping house, helping build business. Years where she gradually dissolved, turning from a bright, smart girl into her husband's shadow. An appendage to him, a function, not a person. She looked at the cake splattered on the floor and suddenly remembered baking it yesterday. Whipping batter, carefully layering, making cream, decorating the top. Hours of meticulous work, all to please guests, create a festive mood. And what in return? mockery, humiliation, disdain. Enough, flashed in her mind, like thunder from clear sky, like sudden insight. Enough enduring, enough bending, enough being invisible. Emily, Michael raised his voice. You deaf? Who am I talking to? He raised his voice as always when she didn't immediately obey. Over years it became habit. He commanded, she complied. But now something changed, something important and irreversible happened deep in her soul. I hear, she replied quietly, lifting her eyes. I hear everything, Mike. Now and all these years. Something in her gaze made Michael fall silent. Maybe for the first time in ages he truly looked at his wife and saw not a familiar fixture, but a living woman with eyes full of pain and resolve. A woman who seemed no longer willing to play by his rules. Such silence hung in the room, you could hear the wall clock ticking. Antique with pendulum, inherited from Emily's parents. They'd survived moves, renovations, crises, always measuring seconds, minutes, hours of her life. And how many of those hours was she truly happy? Guests froze, unsure what to do. Some nervously tapped forks on plates, some glanced at watches, wondering if they could bow out without offending hosts. No one wanted to witness a family scandal, but leaving now would be too awkward. You apologize right now, unexpectedly for all, Robert said to his son, for everything you said here. His voice unusually firm. Emily suddenly recalled her father-in-law was a military man in the past, a colonel. Retired, he'd lost his commanding tone, become softer, calmer. But now that strength resurfaced, which probably helped him rise to high rank. What? Michael turned stunned to his father. Dad, what? I was just joking. She's not offended, right, Em? He looked at his wife with a strained smile, meant to signal, back me up, bail me out, as always. Emily knew that smile. How many times she'd played along when he said stupid or tactless things. How many times smoothed edges justified his behavior to friends, relatives, kids. No, Mike. Emily shook her head. Not anymore, not offended. It was true, she no longer felt offended. Just immense, all-consuming fatigue and relief. Yes, strange relief that everything finally fell into place. No more pretending, playing happy wife. Masks off, and it brought unexpected freedom. She scanned the guests. They sat frozen like at a theatre show. Some looked with sympathy, some awkward, some with barely hidden schadenfreude. Sarah mouthed silently, "Go on, Em. Tell him everything." And Emily suddenly realized she really wanted to speak out. Not yell, not accuse, but just say the truth, calmly and with dignity. Maybe the last time she talks to Michael as his wife. You know, Mike, Emily suddenly felt extraordinary calm, as if finally dropping a heavy load she'd carried for years. I want to make a toast. It's my birthday today, right? She raised her champagne glass, which miraculously hadn't spilled when the plate fell. Her hand didn't shake, surprising even her. Usually in stress, her hands trembled, but now she was amazingly calm. I want to drink to honesty, to the truth finally spoken today, truth about how you feel about me. And you know, it even lightened me up. All these years I tried to earn your respect, your love. Cooked, washed, ironed, raised kids, helped with business. With business? Michael snorted. You're exaggerating. David shook his head, looking at Michael with undisguised disappointment. It seemed hard for him to believe this smug, insensitive man was the same Michael he'd befriended in college. Yes, Mike, with business, Emily repeated firmly. Who suggested opening stores in residential neighborhoods, not downtown like you wanted? Who drafted the first business plan? Who found the first suppliers? Who handles all the books while you pretend you can't use a computer? Michael opened his mouth to object, but found no answer. Truth caught him off guard. Over their marriage years, he'd so accustomed to claiming all achievements as his that he seemed to sincerely believe his own myth. Didn't know, David suddenly asked, looking at him with interest. You really didn't know your wife basically runs your business while you play big boss? His words were like salt on a wound. Michael jerked as if slapped. What nonsense, he fumed. It's my business. I built it from scratch, from scratch. Now Emily smirked, and that smirk was so unusual on her usually soft face that everyone involuntarily froze. And who took the loan for the first batch of goods? In whose name was it? Who mortgaged her parents' apartment because the bank wouldn't give you anything with your credit history? Robert shifted stunned gaze from daughter-in-law to son. He clearly didn't know the sacrifices Emily made for her husband. Michael paled. He preferred not to recall that episode. Emily's parents were against mortgaging the apartment, their only asset. But Michael convinced her, promising the world. Then, when things took off, he forgot. Debts. "Emily, enough," he muttered. "You had too much. Let's talk later." He tried to turn it to a joke, laughed nervously, glancing at guests for support. But no one rushed to back him. Even his mother, always defending her son, now stayed silent, fidgeting with a napkin, embarrassed. "No, Mike," she shook her head. "Not later. Now. You started this talk. You said there's no point in keeping me around, that I'm a burden on your neck. So I want everyone here to know, it's not so." She took a breath and continued. "When 3 years ago we had tax issues, who sat nights rechecking all documents? When last year there was a supply crisis due to tariffs, who found new partners in China? When your chief accountant went on maternity leave, who took over her work, though you promised to hire a replacement?" Some present business partners exchanged glances. Seems they knew more about this than Michael would like. "I didn't know," Michael muttered, confused. "You knew," Emily replied harshly. "Perfectly knew. It was just convenient to pretend it all happens by itself. And me? I got so used to being invisible that I believed it myself. There's really no point in keeping me around." Complete silence fell in the room. Even Patricia, usually ready to defend her son, sat silent, stunned. "Is that true?" Suddenly spoke one of Michael's business partners, an elderly man Emily knew for years. "Sorry, Mike, but your wife really pulls half your business. When we had issues with that shipment of defective fridges, who fixed it with minimal losses? Emily, when we urgently needed to approve new contracts before New Year's, who did we negotiate with? Emily, yeah, and she helped me with documents more than once," his wife supported. "Remember, Em, how we sat till 2 a.m. redoing that declaration? And Mr. Carter didn't even say thanks, though we saved him from a big fine. And she helped me with store registration," added another guest. "Without her advice, I'd still be untangling that bureaucracy." Michael scanned everyone confused, as if not believing his ears. His world, where he was almighty boss and wife unnoticeable homemaker, was cracking. "And now I want to say the main thing." Emily raised her glass again. "I'm grateful to you, Mike, grateful that today you finally said what you think, because it gives me the right to do what I haven't dared for so long." She sipped and set the glass on the table. "I'm leaving you, Michael, right now." "What?" He laughed nervously. "Where will you go? You have nothing." "I have me," Emily replied simply, "and that's enough." "What's with you today?" Michael started angering. "What show are you putting on? Ruined the whole party." "No, Mike," she shook her head. "You ruined the party, and not just today's. You've gradually ruined 23 years of my life, but today that's over." Emily turned to Sarah. "Can I stay with you tonight?" Her voice sounded surprisingly firm. She wasn't asking permission, not apologizing for inconvenience, just clearly stated her request. And that was another small step to finding herself. Of course, without hesitation, her friend replied, "Come, let's pack your things." In her eyes was approval and pride for her friend who'd finally taken such an important step. "Stop this circus." Michael jumped up, knocking over a chair. Whiskey from his glass spilled on the tablecloth, leaving an ugly brownish stain. Another symbolic sign of their relationship's destruction. "You're not going anywhere. This is my house." "The house is in both names," Emily replied calmly, "and half the business too. Don't worry, I'm not planning to ruin you. I just want to finally live for myself." Those words came hard. All her life she'd tried not to touch her husband's ambitions, not remind of her rights, endure and forgive. But now something flipped inside her, and that something gave her strength to speak truth without fear or regret. She headed to the bedroom. Sarah followed. The remaining guests in the living room exchanged awkward glances, unsure whether to leave or stay. Conversations died, and in the silence you could hear the wall clock ticking and candles crackling on the table. "Maybe we should," one began, But Michael interrupted. Sit. No one's leaving. It's all an act. She just wants attention. She'll cry and calm down. He spoke loudly, confidently, but anxiety showed in his eyes, as if for the first time he faced a situation he couldn't control. David shook his head, looking at his former friend with regret. I don't think so, Mike. Seems to me she's dead serious. And in her place, I'd do the same. He spoke softly but firmly, no judgment or preaching in his words, just stating fact. Perhaps that's why they stung Michael so. What do you understand? Michael snapped. Your wife's a professor, not a homemaker. You don't know what it's like dragging someone who can't do anything. Seems to me it's the opposite, Robert said quietly. She dragged you all these years and you didn't notice. Those words from his father, whom Michael always respected and valued, hurt most. He froze open-mouthed, no words to reply. You too, Dad? Michael couldn't believe his ears. Mum, say something at least. But to his surprise, Patricia stayed silent, eyes down. For the first time in years, she had nothing to say in her son's defense. Perhaps today's evening opened her eyes to many things. Meanwhile, in the bedroom, Emily quickly and methodically packed essentials. She pulled an old gym bag from the closet, tossed in a few changes of underwear, favorite bathrobe, makeup bag, phone charger. Don't forget passport, Sarah reminded, and your cards. Savings passbook, Emily suddenly remembered. She went to the old dresser, pulled the bottom drawer, and took a worn savings passbook from under a stack of winter sweaters. My personal savings here, for a rainy day. Not much, but enough for starters. Smart to have a stash, Sarah nodded approvingly. I have one too, even living alone. As Grandma taught, a woman needs her own money, not to depend on a man. Emily smiled sadly, zipping the bag. Packing turned out surprisingly simple. In 23 years of marriage, she'd accumulated surprisingly few personal things she really wanted to take. They returned to the living room, where Michael paced back and forth, nervously fiddling with his tie. Well, calmed down. He tried to sound confident, but it came out unconvincing. Let's forget this stupidity, huh? Emily shook her head. Sorry, Mike, but I've decided. I need to live apart, think what to do next. I'll call a lawyer about divorce. What divorce? What? Michael flared. We have a family, 23 years together. You gone crazy? No, Mike, I've finally come to my senses, Emily replied quietly. You know, I loved you very much. Forgave everything, endured, thought any moment he'd appreciate, notice, understand. But today I realized you'll never change, and I don't want to be a shadow anymore. What shadow? Michael tried to mock, but fear showed in his eyes. Enough cheap drama. You said it all yourself today, Mike, Emily replied, heading to the exit. There's no point in keeping her around. Well, I won't be any point for you anymore. I'm leaving. Stop, he grabbed her arm. You can't just leave. What about business? Documents, books, China negotiations? I have an important investor meeting next week. I need your help with the presentation. Emily stopped and looked at him with pity. See, Mike, you admit yourself I did a lot. But before you always claimed all credits. And now suddenly remembered. She gently freed her arm from his grip. Don't worry about business. I'm not taking anything. Just hire a proper accountant, secretary, and client manager. Then maybe you'll manage without me. Though it'll cost you way more than a free wife slave. Emily, you don't understand, Michael began, pleading notes in his voice. But then David interjected. Emily, I have a business proposal. Everyone in the room turned to him. I'm serious, David continued. I'm opening a branch of my company in Chicago. Chain of eco stores and cafes. I need a reliable partner who knows the US market well and handles documents. I offer you the executive director position with a share in the business. Michael paled. You're poaching my wife. No, David replied calmly. I'm offering a job to a talented specialist who, as we all learned today, has vast business management experience but never got due recognition or pay. He turned to Emily. This is absolutely serious. Office, official salary, health insurance, benefits package, and business share, and of course, recognition of your merits. Emily looked at him confused. But I don't know if I can handle it. I've been just a homemaker for so many years. You can, David said confidently. "I've seen your work and know what you're capable of. And honestly, that's why I came today. Wanted to talk collaboration, but didn't think it'd turn so dramatic." Sarah stood next to Emily, squeezing her hand tight. "Decide yourself, girlfriend. But it's a good chance." "What, you all conspired?" Michael exploded. "Emily, you know nothing about modern business. You'll just embarrass yourself." And then something clicked in Emily's head. He always talked to her like that. Devalued, mocked, undermined her confidence. And she'd always believed him, doubted her abilities, backed off. But not now. "You know what, Mike?" She lifted a calm gaze to him. "I probably should thank you." "For what?" he balked. His always confident face now showed confusion, such a turn he didn't expect. Usually when he disparaged her abilities, Emily either stayed silent or justified, proved she was worth something. But now she stood before him straight, calm, somehow different. "For showing me your true face yesterday," Emily replied, "for dropping the mask. All these years I thought I wasn't good enough, that I had to try harder to earn your respect. But yesterday I realized it's not me, it's you. You just can't appreciate what you have. Respect those close." Michael blinked confused, as if not recognizing this new, self-assured woman. Where was the Emily who always looked at him adoringly, fulfilled all whims, swallowed all hurts? "And don't worry about work," Emily continued. "I'll handle it fine. After all, I managed your books, drafted business plans, led supplier talks. Just before you claimed all credits, now I'll work for myself. And you know, I'm sure I'll succeed." She spoke without bitterness, without offense, just stating facts. And this calm confidence seemed to scare Michael more than if she'd yelled and accused. Yells and tears he'd know how to quench with usual words that she dramatizes. He's tired, she should understand him. But with this new self-assured woman, he didn't know how to act. She grabbed the suitcase handle and headed out. Michael didn't try to stop her, just watched with some new expression of surprise or respect. "And what about me?" he suddenly asked, childish helplessness in his voice. "What about our family?" Emily turned at the door. "The family's long gone, Mike. Just a shell appearance, inside emptiness. We're like two strangers under one roof, and you know it as well as I." She paused and added softer, "I don't hold grudge against you, really. Maybe someday we can even communicate normally for the kids and grandkids. But now I need distance and my own life." With those words, she left the apartment she'd considered home for 23 years, feeling strange lightness, as if dropping a heavy backpack she'd carried for years without noticing how heavy. Outside, autumn sun shone, puddles after night rain reflected high, clear sky. Emily lifted her face to the sun, closed her eyes, enjoying the warmth. And for the first time in ages, she felt free. The meeting with David went better than expected. He proved a serious, thoughtful conversationalist, without a hint of condescension she feared. Told about his business, showed financial plans, explained the eco-stores concept he wanted to open in the US. "And of course, we'll need to adapt the European model to American realities," he said as they drank coffee after lunch. "Different mentality here, different consumer habits. For example, in Germany, organic veggies and dairy are top sellers. Here, I think eco-household goods will be popular. Our people love a clean home. And cosmetics," Emily added. "Natural, no chemicals. Many are thinking about it now, especially women over 40. Several friends switch to it, though they have to order online and it's expensive." "See?" David smiled. "You're already thinking like a marketer. That's the insider view I need." They discussed work terms, and Emily was surprised by the offered salary. She hadn't imagined she could be worth that on the job market. "But I have no experience." "Official," she noted uncertainly. "But you have knowledge and skills," David countered, "and intuition. Experience comes with practice. I believe in you, Em." Perhaps those words, "I believe in you," decided it. Emily agreed, and they said she'd start in a week once personal matters settled. 3 months passed. Emily sat in her office at Eco Life Company, checking sales reports for the first store they'd opened in a mall near the Riverwalk. Results exceeded expectations. First month they turned a small profit, though planned break-even no sooner than 6 months. A knock at the door. It was Marina, her assistant, young but very capable girl. "Emily Louise, you have a visitor," she said. "Says you know her?" "Who?" Emily surprised. She hadn't scheduled meetings today. "Patricia Stevens," Marina replied. Emily couldn't hide surprise. Mother-in-law? Why'd she come? They hadn't seen each other since Emily left Michael. True, talked a couple times about divorce and property division, but conversations were dry and businesslike. "Show her in, please." Emily fixed her hair and straightened her jacket. Patricia entered the office, holding straight as always. But something changed in her, gaze softer, and she held not so arrogantly as before. "Hello, Emily." She hesitated awkwardly at the door, not interrupting. "You're busy." "No, no, come in." Emily pointed to the visitor chair. "Tea." "If possible," Patricia nodded, sitting. Emily asked Marina to bring tea and turned to the unexpected guest. "Something happened?" "No, nothing like that." Patricia shook her head. "I just wanted to talk." "Apologize." Emily raised eyebrows, surprised. "Apologize? For what?" "For how I treated you all these years," the woman replied directly. "I was unfair, unkind. And I want you to know I'm ashamed of it." Emily didn't know what to say. Such admission from Patricia she never expected. "You see," Patricia continued, "I always wanted the best for Mikey. He's my only one. I adored him, spoiled him. Probably too much. And when he brought you, so simple, from an ordinary family, I decided you weren't his match, that you were using him to climb up." She smiled bitterly. "But it turned out the opposite, huh? He used you all these years." "Patricia," Emily objected softly, "no need. We both made mistakes. I could have left earlier but didn't. So I needed something from those relations too." "You're too kind." Patricia shook her head. "You know, I'd often drop by unannounced, catch you working. You'd be with papers or on the phone solving issues. But I always thought you were just amusing yourself playing business lady. And Mikey? He encouraged my attitude, always said, 'Oh, Mom, she's just helping a bit out of boredom.'" Emily listened without interrupting. Marina brought tea, and Patricia, sipping, continued. "When you left, he first raged, yelled you were ungrateful, abandoned him when he needed support most. But then business problems started, serious ones. Turned out he knows zilch about books, logistics, supplier talks. Everything you did unnoticed suddenly stopped." Patricia shook her head sadly. "He hired 3 people instead of you alone. And still things are shaky. And that China story. They refused to work with him, said they trusted only you." "Yes, I know," Emily nodded. "They called me, asked if I could recommend another US partner." "And what did you say?" Patricia tensed. "I advised them to work with Michael," Emily replied calmly. "Said though we split, his company's reliable, and they can trust him like they trusted me." "You?" The mother-in-law looked at her amazed. "After all he did." "We were partners 23 years, Emily shrugged. "And we have kids together, a grandson. I don't want war, just to live my life." "You're an amazing woman." Patricia shook her head. "I see that now and regret not sooner." She set the cup on the table. "Also wanted to say I'm proud of you. You built a new life at an age when many give up and go with the flow. You found courage to change everything and succeeded. I see you've bloomed, look better, and heard from Lily things are good here. You're happy." "Yes," Emily smiled, "happy for the first time in years." When Patricia left, Emily stood long at the window, watching her former mother-in-law go to her car, straight, proud, but no longer haughty, and thought how amazingly life turns. 3 months ago, she was just Michael Carter's wife, a homemaker no one took seriously. Today she's a successful executive, respected by colleagues, trusted by partners. Her phone buzzed. Message from David. "Investor meeting went great. They're thrilled with your presentation. Celebrating tonight." Emily smiled and replied, "Of course." Life went on. And this new life she liked much more than the old. If you liked the story, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. It motivates us to create new interesting stories every day. Sorry for any pronunciation or accent errors. Don't miss the new video you'll see on your screen right now. All the best, and be happy.